The marble floor felt cold beneath my bare feet as I stood outside my father's study, my hand hovering over the heavy wooden door. Inside, voices rumbled. Low, masculine, discussing things I wasn't supposed to hear. I pressed my palm against the cool wood, steadying myself, and thought about Sophia, my little sister. 20 years old, beautiful in that delicate way that made men stupid and dangerous. She didn't deserve what was coming. None of us did, but especially not her. Elena. My brother Marco's voice cut through my thoughts like a blade. I turned to find him leaning against the corridor wall, arms crossed, his dark eyes assessing me with that mixture of contempt and calculation I'd grown accustomed to. Father didn't summon you. I know. I kept my voice level, blank. Years of practice had taught me how to be invisible, how to show nothing. I was looking for Sophia. She's in her room, packing. Something cruel flickered across his face. Father's finally found a use for her. The Rossi family wants a bride, and Sophia's pretty enough to seal that alliance. The words hit like physical blows, though I'd known they were coming. In our world, the world of the Civita Vecchia familia, daughters were currency, assets to be traded for power and protection. I'd always known my turn would come eventually. But Sophia. She was still so young, still believed in fairy tales and happy endings. The Rossi Don is 67 years old, I said quietly, and cruel. Everyone knows what happened to his last wife. Marco shrugged, his expensive suit catching the afternoon light streaming through the windows. Not our problem. Father needs the alliance, and Sophia's the price. Be grateful it's not you. He pushed off the wall, moving closer until I could smell his cologne, something expensive and cloying that made my stomach turn. Though maybe I should suggest he offer both of you. A package deal. You're 24 now, Elena. Getting old for the marriage market, but you still have your uses. I bit down on my tongue hard enough to taste copper. Fighting back would only make things worse. In this house, in this life, I'd learned that survival meant silence. But as Marco walked away, laughing at some private joke, I made a decision. Sophia wouldn't go to the Rossi family. I wouldn't allow it. The study door opened suddenly, making me step back. Men in expensive suits filed out. My father's associates, faces I recognized from years of dinners and meetings where I was expected to be decorative and mute. They barely glanced at me as they passed, except for the last one. He was younger than the others, maybe 32 or 33. Tall and broad-shouldered, in a way that suggested the tailored charcoal suit concealed significant muscle. His hair was dark, almost black, swept back from a face that was all sharp angles and controlled power. But it was his eyes that caught and held me. Vivid green, like spring leaves or expensive emeralds, studying me with an intensity that made my breath catch. Signorina. His voice was deep, cultured, with that distinctly Tuscan accent that softened certain consonants. He inclined his head slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement rather than deference. I nodded back, not trusting my voice, and watched as he descended the stairs with that fluid grace some dangerous men possess. Through the window, I saw him climb into a sleek black Maserati, flanked by two large men who had to be his security. "Elena!" My father's voice boomed from inside the study. "Get in here. Now." I entered slowly, taking in the scene. My father, Antonio Del Vecchio, sat behind his massive desk like a king on a throne. Overweight, aging, but still commanding in that way powerful men are. His thinning gray hair was slicked back, his jowls shadowed with late afternoon stubble. He looked at me with the same expression he always wore, mild disgust, mixed with calculation. "Sir," I said, keeping my eyes lowered. "You saw him? The man who just left?" "Yes, sir. That was Pietro Zampieri, Don of the Sacra Siena Organizzata." He leaned back in his chair, which groaned under his weight. Do you know what that means? I did. Everyone in our world knew about the Zampieri family. They controlled Tuscany with an iron fist, commanded respect and fear in equal measure, had connections that reached all the way to Rome and beyond. They were our rivals, had been for 2 generations, a cold war of territory and influence that occasionally erupted into violence. He controls Tuscany, I answered carefully, precisely. My father stood, moving to the window that overlooked our estate in Civitavecchia, the sprawling villa, the manicured gardens, the armed guards patrolling the perimeter, all of it paid for with blood and fear. There's a war coming, Elena. Smaller families are getting bold, thinking they can carve up territory between them. The Zampieri and Del Vecchio families are the largest targets. I remained silent, waiting. Whatever this was, I was just a pawn being moved into position. Pietro Zampieri proposed an alliance, my father continued. A joining of our families through marriage. He knows that united we'd be untouchable. Divided, we're vulnerable. My stomach dropped. Sophia. Was my first thought, yes. He turned to look at me, and something cruel twisted his features. But Zampieri made an interesting request. He asked to meet both my daughters before deciding. Said he wanted to give them a choice. Unprecedented in our world. But he's young, still idealistic about certain things. He'll learn. A choice? The word felt foreign on my tongue. Between marrying him or marrying the man I choose. My father's smile was sharp. For Sophia, that's the Rossi Don. For you. He paused, enjoying this. I haven't decided yet. Maybe Marco's friend, Dante Caruso. He's expressed interest, though you're a bit old for his usual taste. He prefers them younger, more pliable. Dante Caruso. I'd met him once, seen the way he looked at young girls, the rumors that followed him like shadows. Just thinking about him made my skin crawl. So you'll both go to Tuscany tomorrow, my father said. Pietro Zampieri will meet with each of you privately, and you'll each make your choice. Him or whoever I decide to give you to. He sat back down, dismissing me with a wave. Go, Pac. And Elena, don't embarrass me. Zampieri might be our rival, but he's still a Don. Show proper respect. I left the study on shaking legs, my mind racing. A choice. He'd called it a choice, but it was just picking between different cages, different monsters. Still, as I climbed the stairs toward Sophia's room, one thought crystallized with absolute clarity. Whatever choice I made, Sophia wouldn't end up with the Rossi Don. I'd save her, even if it meant sacrificing myself. Sophia was indeed packing when I entered her room, tears streaming down her pretty face as she folded dresses with trembling hands. Elena, she sobbed, rushing into my arms. Marco told me, Father's giving me to that awful old man. I can't. Shh. I held her close, stroking her long, dark hair. Listen to me, Sophia. Tomorrow we're going to Tuscany. The Don there wants to form an alliance through marriage, and he's giving us a choice. Marry him, or accept Father's arrangement. She pulled back, her brown eyes wide and red-rimmed. A choice? But Father said... I know what Father said. I gripped her shoulders gently. Sophia, listen carefully. When we meet this Pietro Zampieri tomorrow, you're going to tell him you choose Father's arrangement. Do you understand? But that means the Rossi Don... No. I said it firmly. Because I'm going to choose Pietro Zampieri. I'm the older daughter, and if he wants an alliance badly enough, he'll accept me instead of you. You'll be free. Sophia, Father will have to find someone else for you. Someone better. Elena, no. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. I can't let you sacrifice yourself for me. You deserve... I deserve nothing. I interrupted. surprised by the bitterness in my own voice. None of us do. But you're still young, still have time to hope for something better. Let me do this, Sophia. Let me protect you. Just this once. She cried herself to sleep in my arms that night, and I lay awake staring at the ceiling, thinking about green eyes and the choice I'd already made. Whatever Pietro Zampieri was, however dangerous, however cruel, he couldn't be worse than what awaited Sophia with the Rossi Dawn. At least, that's what I told myself. The drive to Tuscany the next morning was tense and silent. Marco drove, with Sophia and me in the back seat of the Mercedes, both of us dressed in modest but elegant dresses, me in deep burgundy, Sophia in cream. We'd been instructed to look proper, respectable, like the valuable merchandise we were. The Tuscan countryside was beautiful in the late September morning, rolling hills covered in vineyards and olive groves, medieval towns perched on hilltops like something from a postcard. I'd never been here before. Father kept us close to Civitavecchia, controlled our movements the way he controlled everything else. After 3 hours, we turned onto a private road that wound up through more vineyards until a villa appeared. No, not just a villa. An estate. The main house was gorgeous, all honey-colored stone and terracotta tiles, with formal gardens spreading out around it. Other buildings dotted the property, guest houses, what looked like a winery, security barracks. This wasn't just wealth. This was power. Old money combined with new empire. A man was waiting at the entrance as we pulled up. Dark-haired, early 30s, built like he'd learned to fight before he learned to read. "Marco Del Vecchio?" he asked, his Tuscan accent pronounced. "I'm Luca Zampieri, Pietro's cousin. Follow me, please." Inside, the villa was even more impressive. High ceilings with original frescoes, marble floors that gleamed, furniture that was antique and obviously cared for through generations. Everything whispered of history, of family, of permanence in a world where nothing felt permanent. Luca led us to a sitting room where Pietro Zampieri waited, standing by tall windows that overlooked the vineyards. He turned as we entered, and I felt that same jolt of recognition from yesterday, though I'd barely glimpsed him then. In full daylight, he was devastating. Not handsome in the conventional sense. His features were too sharp, too intense, but compelling in a way that made it hard to look away. Those green eyes swept over us, assessing, before settling on Sophia. "Marco," he said, his voice that same cultured rumble. "Thank you for bringing your sisters. If you'll excuse us, I'd like to speak with each of them privately." Marco looked like he wanted to argue, leaving us alone with a rival Don violated every protocol. But Pietro's expression allowed no argument. After a moment, Marco nodded stiffly and left with Luca. "Signorina Sofia Del Vecchio," Pietro said gently, moving toward my sister. "I understand your father has arranged a marriage for you with Don Rossi." Sophia's hands trembled as she nodded. "Yes, signore. And you don't wish to marry him?" It wasn't a question, but Sophia answered anyway. "No, signore, I'm afraid of him." Something flickered in Pietro's green eyes. "Fear is a poor foundation for marriage." He paused, studying her. "I'm offering an alternative. Marry me instead. Form this alliance through our union, and you'll be protected from your father's other arrangements." Sophia glanced at me, then back at Pietro. Her voice was barely a whisper. "You're very kind, signore, but I choose my father's arrangement." Pietro's eyebrows rose slightly. "You choose Don Rossi, knowing what he is?" "Yes, signore." Sophia's voice gained strength, following the script we'd agreed on. "I understand my duty to my family." He studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Very well. I respect your choice, signorina." He turned to me, and the intensity of his gaze was like being caught in a spotlight. "Elena Del Vecchio, your turn." Sophia squeezed my hand once before leaving the room. Then it was just Pietro Zampieri and me, and the weight of the choice I'd already made. "You're the older daughter," he said, moving closer. 24, educated in Switzerland, fluent in 4 languages, degree in art history that your father considers useless. He smiled slightly. "I know things, Elena. It's my business to know." "Then you know I'm not valuable," I replied, finding my voice. "My father hates me. I'm too old, too opinionated too. Difficult. Whatever alliance you want, I'm not the prize daughter." "No," he agreed, stopping a few feet away. "You're not the prize. You're something far more interesting." His head tilted slightly. "You convinced your sister to refuse me so you could take her place. You're sacrificing yourself to protect her." My breath caught. "How did you—" "Your body language. The way she looked at you before answering. The fact that no sane woman would choose Francesco Rossi over almost anyone else." His green eyes held mine. "You're brave, Elena. Foolish, perhaps, but brave. That's rare in our world." "I'm not brave," I said quietly. "I'm desperate." Desperation and bravery often look the same. He moved to a sideboard, pouring 2 glasses of what looked like whiskey despite the early hour. He handed me one. "So, what's your choice? Me or whoever your father has planned for you?" I took the glass, surprised by how steady my hand was. "What would marrying you mean, specifically?" "Honesty," he said, seeming pleased by the question. "I like that. Very well. You'd live here, in Tuscany. You'd be Donna of the Sacra Siena Organizzata, which comes with responsibilities and dangers. You'd be my wife in every sense. I won't maintain a marriage of convenience only. You'd have freedom within certain boundaries, security, protection. And most importantly, you'd be mine, Elena. Completely." The possessiveness in that last word should have frightened me. Somehow, it didn't. "And what do you get?" "An alliance with your family. A smart, brave woman who sees clearly despite being raised in darkness. A partner, not just a decorative wife." He paused. "And Sophia stays protected. If you choose me, I'll make sure your father finds her a better match. Someone young, decent. It's within my power." My throat tightened. "Why would you do that?" "Because I want you to choose me freely, not out of pure desperation." His voice softened. "I won't lie to you, Elena. I'm not a good man. I've done terrible things. Will do more terrible things. But I protect what's mine with everything I have. If you become mine, no one will ever hurt you again. That includes your father." I thought about Sophia, about the Rossi Dawn, about Dante Caruso, and whatever other monster my father might have planned for me. I thought about green eyes and honesty, and the strange feeling that this dangerous man might actually mean his promises. "I choose you," I said, the words coming out stronger than I felt. "I choose to marry you, Pietro Zampieri." His smile was slow and devastating. "Then you're mine. Elena Del Vecchio. From this moment forward, you're under my protection, and no one, not your father, not your brother, not anyone, can touch you." He stepped closer, raising his glass. "To our alliance, cara mia, and to your courage." We drank together, sealing a choice that I knew would change everything. For better or worse, I now belonged to the Dawn of Tuscany. And God help me, part of me was relieved. Moving to Tuscany happened faster than I'd anticipated. Within 2 days of my choice, I found myself standing in the bedroom that would now be mine. A beautiful space with cream-colored walls, antique furniture, and windows overlooking the vineyards that seemed to stretch forever. My few possessions looked pathetic, spread across the massive bed. Some clothes, a few books. The small portrait of my mother that I'd kept hidden from my father for years. It's not much, I said to Sophia, who'd helped me pack and insisted on accompanying me for the move, despite Marco's protests. Everything I own fits in 2 suitcases. That just means you get to fill this gorgeous room with new things. Sophia was trying to sound cheerful, but I could see the tears she was fighting. Elena, are you sure about this? It's not too late to... It's already done, I interrupted gently. The marriage contract had been signed yesterday, witnessed by both families. In 1 month, there would be a ceremony to make it official in the eyes of the church and society. But legally, binding, I was already Pietro Zampieri's wife. And yes, I'm sure, Father already found you a better match, remember? That was true. Somehow Pietro had worked his magic, or his threats, and my father had agreed to betroth Sophia to Alessio Bianchi, a young don from Napoli who was known for being relatively decent by our world standards. Sophia would have time, at least. Time to know her future husband. Time to prepare. Time for something other than being immediately handed over to a monster. A knock at the door made us both turn. Pietro stood in the hallway, dressed more casually than I'd seen him before. Dark jeans and a white linen shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms corded with muscle. His dark hair was slightly damp, as though he'd recently showered, and even in this relaxed state, he radiated power. Sophia, he said with a slight smile. Marco is downstairs, saying it's time to leave. He's not happy about the delay. Marco's never happy about anything, Sophia muttered, but she hugged me tightly. I'll visit soon, I promise. And you'll call me every day? Every day, I agreed, though I wasn't sure that would be allowed. In my father's house, phone calls were monitored, restricted. I had no idea what the rules would be here. After Sophia left, Pietro remained in the doorway, not entering. Respecting the boundary of my space, I realized. How are you settling in, Cara? The endearment sent an unexpected flutter through my stomach. It's overwhelming. Your home is beautiful. Our home, he corrected gently. This is your home now, Elena. Everything here belongs to you as much as to me. He paused. I thought you might like to see the rest of the property tomorrow. The winery, the gardens, the town nearby. Unless you'd prefer time alone to adjust. I should have said yes to solitude. Should have wanted space to process the enormity of what I'd done. But standing there, looking at this man who'd given me a choice when no one else ever had, I found myself saying, I'd like that. The tour, I mean. His smile transformed his face, softening those sharp edges. Good. Meet me for breakfast at 8, and we'll make a day of it. He turned to leave, then paused. Elena, your sister will be safe. I've made sure of it. You have my word. After he left, I sank onto the bed, staring at my mother's portrait. She'd been beautiful, fragile, destroyed by my father's cruelty and indifference. She'd died when I was 12, and I'd sworn I'd never let myself become like her, broken by a man's power over me. But as I looked around this beautiful room in this beautiful villa, I wondered if I'd just traded one prison for another. A more elegant cage, certainly, but still a cage. The next morning, I dressed carefully in simple jeans and a soft blue sweater, leaving my hair loose around my shoulders. Pietro was already in the breakfast room when I arrived, reading something on his phone while eating fresh pastries and espresso. Buongiorno? He greeted, standing as I entered, another old-fashioned courtesy I hadn't expected. Did you sleep well? Yes, actually. It surprised me, but the bed had been incredibly comfortable, and the silence of the countryside was so different from the tense atmosphere in Civitavecchia. Better than I have in months. Good, you were exhausted. I could see it in your eyes. He pulled out a chair for me. Teresa makes the best espresso in Tuscany, and the cornetti are still warm from the oven. The breakfast was simple, but perfect. And as we ate, Pietro explained the day's plan. The estate was large, several hundred acres of vineyards, olive groves, the villa and its outbuildings, and a small winery where they produced wine primarily for the family and close associates. "It's been in the Zampieri family for 5 generations," he said, as we walked through the vineyards afterward, the late September sun warm on our faces. "My great-great-grandfather bought it with money from, well, you can imagine, but every generation since has poured legitimate work into it. My grandfather Matteo especially. He believed we needed roots in something real, not just in violence and fear. You are the future of the organization, of this family, each of you. Remain united, protect and care for each other. Family always," I quoted softly, remembering the words from a speech I'd once heard attributed to the old Don Zampieri. Pietro stopped walking, looking at me with surprise. "You know my grandfather's words? Everyone in our world knows them. He was different, respected, not just feared." I touched a grape cluster, feeling the weight of it. My father hated him for it, said he was making the family soft. My grandfather believed that power without honor was just thuggery. Pietro's voice was quiet but firm. That we might operate outside the law, but we could still have principles, still protect our own, still build something that would last beyond violence. He paused. I try to honor that, even when it's difficult. We walked in silence for a while, and I found myself relaxing in his presence, in a way I never had around any man. He didn't crowd me, didn't demand constant attention or conversation. He just existed beside me, comfortable in the quiet. "Why did you really choose me?" I asked suddenly. "You could have had Sophia. She's younger, prettier, more biddable. Or you could have rejected both of us and found some other alliance. Why take on the difficult older daughter who comes with nothing but liabilities?" Pietro considered this, his green eyes studying the landscape before turning back to me. "Do you really want to know?" "Yes. Because when I met with your father 2 days before you came here, I heard you outside his study. He said it simply, factually. You were arguing with your brother Marco, defending Sophia. Your voice was fierce, protective, completely unafraid even though I know what Marco is capable of. And I thought, that's the kind of woman I want beside me. Not someone meek who'll bow to every demand, but someone who'll fight for what matters. Someone strong enough to be my partner, not just my possession." My breath caught. "You heard that argument?" "Every word. The study door isn't as soundproof as your father thinks." A slight smile. "You called Marco a coward and a bully. You told him that someday. Someone would stand up to him and he'd crumble like the weak man he really is. It was magnificent. I'd been so angry that day, so frightened for Sophia, that I'd forgotten to be careful. I thought I was being quiet. You were passionate. There's a difference." He resumed walking, and I followed. "Elena, I know what your life has been like. I know your father treats you with contempt, that your brothers mock you, that you've been made to feel worthless your entire life. But you're not. You're extraordinary, and I want to give you the space to become everything you're capable of being." The words were almost too much. I'd never been told I was extraordinary, had never been treated like I had potential beyond being married off for advantage. "You don't really know me." "Not yet," he agreed, "but I will. We have a lifetime for me to learn every detail of who you are, Elena del Vecchio Zampieri." The sound of my new name sent an unexpected thrill through me. We continued the tour, and Pietro was patient, answering my questions about the property, the business, the family. He had 2 brothers and 3 cousins who were active in the organization, all living on various properties nearby. His parents were dead. His father killed in a territory dispute when Pietro was 19. His mother from cancer 2 years later. "That's when I became Don," he said as we stood in the winery, surrounded by oak barrels aging wine. Too young, really. I had to learn fast, had to prove myself against men who thought I was just a boy playing at power. It wasn't easy. But you did it. Because I had no choice. Because the alternative was watching everything my grandfather built crumble. His voice was firm. "Just like you're doing this because you had no choice. You're protecting your sister because the alternative is unthinkable. We're not so different, you and I. Maybe we weren't. We were both trapped by family, by duty, by circumstances we hadn't chosen. But somehow, standing there in the cool darkness of the wine cellar, I felt less trapped than I had in years." That evening, as we returned to the villa, a black SUV was pulling up to the entrance. 2 men emerged. One I recognized as Luca Zampieri, Pietro's cousin. The other was a stranger, tall and lean with cold eyes and a scar along his jaw. Pietro's entire demeanor changed instantly. The relaxed, almost gentle man I'd spent the day with vanished, replaced by someone harder, more dangerous. "Wait inside," he told me quietly. "This is business." I obeyed, but paused in the doorway where I could still hear their voices. "Marco." Pietro's voice was cold. "What brings the Del Vecchio Consigliere to Tuscany unannounced?" "Your new wife's brother sends his regards." The scarred man, Marco, apparently named after my brother, replied with a tone that suggested no regards at all. "And a message from Don Antonio. He's concerned about certain arrangements." "What arrangements?" "Sophia's engagement to the Bianchi boy. Antonio's reconsidering. Thinks perhaps a more advantageous match could be made now that you've taken his worthless daughter off his hands." The words were like a slap, though I'd heard worse from my father directly. But Pietro's response made my breath catch. "You will refer to my wife with respect, or you'll leave here in a body bag." His voice was absolutely lethal. "And you'll tell Antonio that Sophia's arrangement is final. If he breaks that agreement, the alliance is void, and I'll rain such destruction on Civitavecchia that he'll wish he'd honored his word." Silence. Then Marco's laugh, nervous and forced. "Don Pietro, there's no need for threats. I'm just a messenger. Then take my message back to your Don. Elena is mine now. Sophia is under my protection. Any attempt to renege on our agreements will be considered an act of war. Is that clear enough?" After they left, Pietro found me in the entrance hall. His expression softened when he saw me. "You heard. I heard you defend me." My voice was thick with emotion. "My whole life, no one has ever." "Elena." He crossed to me, his hands coming to rest gently on my shoulders. "You're my wife. That means something to me. It means everything. Anyone who disrespects you disrespects me, and I don't tolerate disrespect." My father called me worthless. "Your father is a fool who wouldn't recognize value if it bit him." Pietro's green eyes were intense. "You are not worthless. You are brave and intelligent and fierce. You are mine. And I protect what's mine with everything I have." There was that possessiveness again, but somehow it didn't feel suffocating. It felt safe. For the first time in my life, I was someone's priority instead of someone's burden. "Thank you," I whispered. "Don't thank me for doing what should have always been done." His hand slid down to take mine. "Come, Teresa's made dinner, and you need to eat. You're too thin. Your father wasn't feeding you properly either." As we sat down to dinner, fresh pasta with wild boar ragu, a hearty Tuscan dish that warmed me from the inside, I found myself studying Pietro. He'd switched back to that gentler version of himself, asking about my day, what I'd thought of the property. if there was anything I needed for my room. But I'd seen the other side now. The Don, the man who threatened body bags and war without hesitation. He caught me staring. "What are you thinking, Kara?" "That you're two different people," I said honestly. "The man you are with me and the man you are with them." "No." He set down his fork, giving me his full attention. "I'm always the same man, Elena. I'm just careful about who sees which aspects of me. With you, I can be softer, because I know you won't mistake softness for weakness. With them," he gestured vaguely toward where the confrontation had happened, "I have to be harder, because in our world, any perceived weakness is an invitation for attack." "So which is the real you?" "Both." His smile was slight but genuine. "That's what I hope you'll come to understand. I can be gentle with you and ruthless with our enemies. I can read poetry and order executions. I can be your husband and their Don. It's not contradictory. It's necessary." I thought about that as I lay in bed that night, alone in my beautiful room. Pietro had made it clear he wouldn't rush intimacy, would give me time to adjust to this new life before expecting me to fulfill all wifely duties. I appreciated that, even as part of me wondered what it would be like to truly belong to him. The next few days fell into a pattern. Mornings, we'd have breakfast together, and Pietro would handle business, meetings with his brothers and cousins, phone calls, decisions that he didn't always explain, but that I could see weighing on him. Afternoons, he'd spend time with me, showing me more of the property, introducing me to key people in his organization, teaching me what I needed to know about being Donna of the Sacra Siena Organizzata. It was overwhelming, but also fascinating. I'd been kept so ignorant in Civitavecchia, treated like an expensive vase to be displayed and ignored. Here, Pietro expected me to learn, to understand, to have opinions. He asked what I thought about various situations, listened when I offered suggestions, treated me like my mind had value. "You're good at this," he said one afternoon as we reviewed the winery's financial records together. I'd pointed out some inefficiencies in the distribution system that could save significant money. "You have an eye for patterns, for seeing what others miss." "My degree in art history," I said with a slight smile. Father thought it was useless, but analyzing paintings for symbolism and hidden meanings? It translates well to analyzing other systems. "Your father is an idiot." Pietro leaned back in his chair, studying me. "I'm going to have you work with Marco. My Marco, not your brother. On our legitimate business operations. Your insights could be valuable. You'd trust me with that? Elena, you're my wife. Eventually, you'll know everything about how this organization runs. I need a partner, not just a decorative spouse." He paused. "Unless you're not interested? If you'd prefer to focus on other things?" "No," I interrupted quickly. "I want to help. I want to be useful." "You already are." His voice was soft. "More than you know." That night, I called Sofia as promised. She sounded happier, told me about meeting Alessio Bianchi and how he seemed kind, seemed genuinely interested in getting to know her before the wedding. "It's because of Pietro," she said. "Whatever he said to Father, it worked. Alessio treats me like a person, not property." She paused. "How is it there? Are you happy? Was I?" I looked around my comfortable room, thought about the day spent learning things that interested me, the man who defended me and valued me. "I think I might be," I admitted. "It's strange, Sophia. He's not what I expected." "Is he good to you?" "Yes. Better than good." I couldn't fully explain the complexity of it, how Pietro could be dangerous and gentle, possessive and respectful, all at once. "I'll tell you more when you visit." After hanging up, I stood by my window, looking out at the vineyards bathed in moonlight. A knock made me turn to find Pietro in the doorway, this time in just black sleep pants and a white t-shirt that showed the defined muscles of his chest and arms. "I heard you on the phone with Sophia," he said. "Just wanted to make sure everything's all right." "Everything's fine. She's happy with Alessio." "Good." He stepped into the room, and I was suddenly very aware that we were alone, that he was my husband, that I was wearing only a silk nightgown. "Elena, I want to ask you something. The wedding ceremony is in 3 weeks. I need to know if you're comfortable with that, or if you need more time to adjust before we make it official in front of everyone." I thought it was already official. The contract is legally binding, yes, but the church ceremony, the public celebration, that's different. That's announcing to the world that you're mine, that this alliance is permanent and unbreakable. His green eyes held mine. "If you're not ready—" "I'm ready," I heard myself say. And surprisingly, I meant it. 3 weeks is fine. He smiled, crossing to me. His hand came up to cup my face, thumb tracing my cheekbone with unexpected gentleness. "You continue to surprise me, cara mia. I thought I'd have to convince you." "Maybe I'm surprising myself," I admitted, leaning into his touch despite myself. "May I kiss you?" The question was soft, giving me the choice, the control. I nodded, and his lips met mine, gentle at first, testing, then deeper as I responded. His arms came around me, pulling me close, and I felt the solid strength of him, the leashed power. When we finally parted, both breathing harder, he rested his forehead against mine. 3 weeks, he murmured. "Then you'll be mine in every way, Elena. I'll make you happy, I swear it. I'll give you everything you've been denied. Respect, partnership, a voice that matters, and protection, always protection." "Why do you want me so much?" I asked, genuinely confused. "I'm not special." "You are to me." His voice was fierce. "You're everything, Cara. You just don't see it yet, but you will. I'll make sure you do." After he left, I touched my lips, still feeling the imprint of his kiss. In 3 weeks, I'd marry Pietro Zampieri in front of both our families, the church, and God. I'd become his wife not just legally, but in every sense that mattered. And the strangest part? I found I was looking forward to it. Maybe, just maybe, I'd chosen right after all. The wedding preparations consumed the villa for the next 2 weeks. Teresa, the housekeeper who'd been with the Zampieri family for 30 years, took charge with military precision, coordinating with caterers, florists, and the small army of staff needed to prepare for what Pietro insisted would be a proper celebration, not some rushed courthouse affair. "Your family will see that you're valued here," he'd told me one morning over espresso. "That you're cherished, not just tolerated. That matters, Elena. It sends a message." I understood the message, that I was under his protection, that disrespecting me meant disrespecting him. In our world, these symbolic gestures were as important as contracts and alliances. Maybe more so. But as the wedding drew closer, I found myself growing increasingly nervous. Not about marrying Pietro. That decision felt right in a way I couldn't fully explain. But about what marriage truly meant. About the wedding night. About surrendering that final barrier. About becoming his completely. He'd been patient, sleeping in his own room despite being my legal husband, stealing kisses but never pushing for more. But after the ceremony, that patience would end. He'd made that clear. "After we're married in the church, you'll move into my room," he'd said, matter of fact. "I won't maintain separate bedrooms, Elena. When we marry, it will be real in every sense." I was thinking about this, standing in the villa's library pretending to read while my mind spun, when Luca Zampieri found me. Pietro's cousin was in his early 30s, with the same dark coloring but brown eyes instead of green, and a more approachable demeanor than his cousin's intensity. "Elena," he said, settling into a chair across from me. "Mind if we talk?" "Of course not." I set aside the book I hadn't been absorbing anyway. "Pietro asked me to check on you. He's worried you're feeling overwhelmed by all the wedding preparations." Luca's expression was kind. "Are you?" "A little," I admitted. "It's all happening so fast." "It is. But that's Pietro for you. Once he decides something, he moves forward with absolute commitment." Luca leaned forward. "I wanted to tell you something about my cousin, about why he's the way he is. Do you know how his father died?" "In a territory dispute," he said. "That's the polite version." Luca's voice grew somber. "The truth is, his father was betrayed by someone he considered a friend, someone he'd shown mercy to years before. Pietro was 19, just finishing university, when he got the call that his father had been ambushed. By the time he got there, his father was dead, and the traitor had fled." My chest tightened. What did Pietro do? What any Don would do. He hunted the traitor down. But Pietro didn't just kill him. He systematically destroyed everything the man valued first. His businesses, his reputation, his family's standing. Only then did he eliminate him. Luca met my eyes. "I'm telling you this not to scare you, but to help you understand. Pietro's fierceness, his possessiveness, his need to protect what's his. It comes from losing his father to betrayal. He learned that showing mercy, being soft, gets people killed. But he's been gentle with me. Because you're not his enemy, Elena. You're his wife, and that puts you in the most protected category in his world." Luca smiled slightly. "I've known Pietro my whole life, and I've never seen him like this with anyone. He actually cares about your opinion, your comfort, your happiness. That's unprecedented." Before I could respond, Marco Zampieri, Pietro's right hand, not my brother, appeared in the doorway. "Elena, Don Pietro needs you in his office. There's been a development." My stomach dropped. In our world, developments were rarely good. I followed Marco through the villa to Pietro's private office, where I found him standing behind his desk, his jaw tight with anger, a phone in his hand. "Elena," he said when he saw me, his voice controlled but with an edge. "Close the door and sit down. We need to talk." I obeyed, my heart hammering. "What happened?" "Your father just called. Apparently there's been a complication with Sofia's engagement to Alessio Bianchi." Pietro's green eyes were cold with fury. "Antonio is claiming that Alessio insulted him somehow, and he's breaking the engagement. He's going back to the original plan, marrying Sofia to Francesco Rossi. No." The word escaped before I could stop it. "He promised. We had an agreement. We did, and he's breaking it." Pietro set down the phone with careful precision, the kind of control that suggested he wanted to throw it through the window. "He called to inform me, not to request permission. He doesn't care about our agreement because he thinks he can manipulate me through you, through your love for your sister." "Can he?" I asked quietly. "Manipulate you, I mean." Pietro moved around the desk to crouch before my chair, taking my hands in his. "Listen carefully, Kara. What I'm about to tell you is important. Yes, I care about your feelings. Yes, I want to protect your sister because she matters to you. But I won't be manipulated by your father's games. If I let him break this agreement without consequences, it shows weakness. It tells everyone that the alliance can be picked apart piece by piece." "So what are you saying?" My voice was shaking. "That Sofia will marry that monster and there's nothing we can do?" "I'm saying I need to think strategically." His grip on my hands tightened. Elena, if I go to war with your father over this, people will die. Your brother, your father's men, some of my men. It will destabilize both families, make us vulnerable to outside attacks. Is that what you want? No, but you want me to save Sophia anyway, to ride in like some hero and fix everything. His voice was gentler now. And I will, amore. I will find a way. But it has to be smart, calculated, done in a way that doesn't destroy us all in the process. Tears burned my eyes. How? How can you save her without going to war? I don't know yet. He released my hands to cut my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. But I promise you this. I will not let your sister marry Francesco Rossi. I will find another way, make another deal, apply different pressure. Give me time, Elena. Trust me. I do, I whispered, and realized it was true. Somehow I'd come to trust this dangerous man completely. I trust you, Pietro. His kiss was fierce, possessive, full of promise. When he pulled back, his eyes were blazing. After our wedding, things change. After we're officially united in the eyes of the church and community, I'll have more leverage with your father, more ability to demand compliance. One more week, Cara. Then I'll have the full weight of our completed alliance behind me, and I'll make Antonio regret breaking his word. That evening, I couldn't eat dinner despite Teresa's worried clucking. I kept thinking about Sophia, about her marrying that cruel old man, about how I'd promised to protect her and was failing. Pietro found me later on the terrace, staring out at the darkened vineyards. You should rest, he said quietly, coming to stand beside me. The wedding is in 4 days, and you need to be strong. How can I think about the wedding when Sophia... We'll be fine. He interrupted firmly. Elena, I need you to hear this. Your father is testing us, testing our alliance, seeing if he can drive a wedge between us by using your love for your sister. The best thing you can do is not let him succeed. Stand beside me at our wedding, show united front, prove that his games won't work. That's how we protect Sophia, by being stronger than his manipulation. I turned to face him. You really believe that? I know it. His hand came up to stroke my hair. In 4 days, you'll be my wife before God and our families. That ceremony isn't just symbolic, Cara. It's a public commitment that can't be undone. A statement that we're one entity now. Once that happens, your father loses his leverage because hurting you means attacking me, and attacking me means war with Tuscany. He won't risk that. And Sophia? Once we're married, I'll offer your father a choice. He can honor his original agreement and betroth Sophia to Alessio Bianchi, or I'll withdraw my support from a business deal he desperately needs, the port expansion in Civitavecchia. Without my backing, the entire project collapses, and Antonio loses millions plus significant face with his associates. Pietro's smile was cold. He'll choose his money and reputation over his spite. Sophia will be safe. You had this planned, I realized. You knew he'd try something like this. I know men like your father. They can't help themselves. They always push boundaries, always test limits. So yes, I prepared contingencies. He pulled me closer. I told you I protect what's mine, Elena. That includes your sister because she matters to you. I leaned against him, feeling the solid strength of his body, breathing in his scent, something spicy and masculine that I'd come to associate with safety. I keep waiting for you to disappoint me, I admitted quietly. For you to reveal yourself as another monster like my father. I am a monster, Cara. His voice was matter of fact. I've killed people. I'll kill more. I operate outside the law and profit from others' vices. But I'm your monster, Elena. I'm a monster who'll burn the world down to protect you and those you love. There's a difference. Was there? I wasn't sure anymore. All I knew was that Pietro's particular brand of monstrosity felt like protection instead of threat. Power used for me instead of against me. We stood there in the darkness for a long time, and when he finally walked me to my room, his kiss goodnight was tender. 4 more days, he murmured against my lips. Then you're mine completely. I can barely wait, amore mio. After he left, I lay awake thinking about his words. 4 days until the wedding. 4 days until I became his in every sense. 4 days until our alliance was complete and unbreakable. 4 days until everything changed again. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and perfect, October sunshine flooding through my windows. Teresa and 2 other women arrived early to help me prepare, bringing with them the dress Pietro had commissioned from a designer in Florence. Ivory silk that hugged my figure before flowing into an elegant train, with delicate lace sleeves and a neckline that was modest but flattering. "You look beautiful, Signorina," Teresa said, tears in her eyes as she fastened my mother's pearl necklace, the only piece of jewelry I had from her, around my neck. Like a proper Tuscan bride. The ceremony would be at the small church on the property, followed by a reception in the villa's gardens. Pietro had invited what seemed like half of Tuscany. Important families, business associates, allies from across Italy. A show of strength and unity. As I stood before the mirror, barely recognizing the elegant woman staring back, there was a knock at the door. "Elena?" Sophia's voice. "Can I come in?" She appeared in the doorway, looking beautiful in a pale pink dress, her face lit with happiness. "You're here," I breathed, rushing to hug her. "I didn't think Father would let you come." "Alessio insisted," she said, pulling back to study me. And Pietro made it very clear that my presence was non-negotiable. Father couldn't refuse without insulting the Zampieri family. She lowered her voice. "Elena, I have good news. This morning, Father received a message from Pietro. Something about a business deal? And suddenly, he's agreed to honor my engagement to Alessio. I'm not marrying the Rossi Don. I'm safe." Relief washed through me so powerfully that my knees weakened. "Pietro did it. He actually did it." "He did," Sophia agreed, "because you matter to him, Elena. Anyone can see it." She squeezed my hands. "I was so scared for you, marrying a man you barely knew. But watching you 2 together these past weeks, the way he looks at you, the way he's fought for what matters to you, I think you might have found something real." Real. The word echoed in my mind as I walked down the aisle 30 minutes later, my hand resting lightly on Luca Zampieri's arm since I had no father to give me away, nor would I have wanted mine performing that role. The church was small but beautiful, filled with flowers and candles, and at the end of the aisle stood Pietro. He wore a perfectly tailored black suit that emphasized his broad shoulders, his dark hair styled back, his green eyes fixed on me with an intensity that made my breath catch. As I approached, I saw something in his expression I'd never seen before. Vulnerability, as though this moment mattered to him in ways that went beyond strategy and alliance. When I reached him, he took my hand, and I felt the slight tremor in his fingers. This powerful, dangerous man was nervous. Somehow, that made me less so. The ceremony was traditional, beautiful, conducted in Latin by a priest who'd known Pietro since childhood. When it came time for the vows, Pietro spoke first, his voice steady and clear. "Elena, I take you as my wife before God and our families. I vow to protect you, to cherish you, to honor you as my equal and partner. I vow that no harm will come to you, or those you love while I draw breath. I vow to be faithful, to be honest, to give you the respect and voice you've always deserved. You are mine, and I am yours, from this day forward, until death parts us." My turn. I looked into those green eyes and spoke the truth. Pietro, I take you as my husband before God and our families. I vow to stand beside you, to support you, to be your partner in all things. I vow to trust you, to believe in you, to build this life with you even though I'm still learning what that means. You gave me a choice when no one else did, and I choose you. I am yours, and you are mine, from this day forward, until death parts us. When the priest pronounced us married and Pietro kissed me, it felt like a claiming, a promise, a beginning all at once. The church erupted in applause, but I barely heard it. I was too focused on the man who was now my husband in every sense, the man I'd chosen to trust with everything I was. The reception was lavish, tables overflowing with Tuscan delicacies, wine flowing freely, music and dancing under strings of lights in the garden. I met what felt like hundreds of people, all congratulating us, all assessing me as the new Donna of the Sacra Siena Organizzata. But it was late in the evening, after the cake had been cut and the formal toasts made, that the moment I'd been both anticipating and dreading finally came. Pietro found me on the terrace where I'd escaped for air, his jacket discarded, his white shirt open at the collar, looking rakish and dangerous and impossibly handsome. "Hello, wife," he said softly, that possessive edge I'd come to recognize threading through his voice. "Hello, husband," I replied, my heart racing. He extended his hand. "It's time, cara mia. Time to make this marriage real in every sense." I took his hand, feeling the warmth of his skin, the strength in his grip. He led me through the villa, up the stairs to his room. Our room now, I reminded myself. It was beautiful, all dark wood and cream linens, with windows overlooking the vineyards and a massive bed that suddenly seemed very significant. "Elena." Pietro turned to face me, his hands coming up to cup my face. "If you're not ready, if you need more time—" "I'm ready," I interrupted, surprised by my own certainty. "I want this. I want you." His kiss was different this time, deeper, hungrier, full of barely leashed desire. His hands found the zipper of my wedding dress, sliding it down with agonizing slowness. The silk pooled at my feet, leaving me in the delicate lingerie Sophia had insisted I buy, white lace that felt impossibly daring. "Bellissima," Pietro breathed, his green eyes dark with want. "You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, Elena, and you're mine. Finally, completely mine." What followed was a claiming in the truest sense, fierce and tender, passionate and gentle. Pietro taking his time to worship every inch of me, to learn what made me gasp and shiver and cry out his name. And when he finally made me his completely, the brief pain was swept away by pleasure so intense it bordered on overwhelming. Afterward, we lay tangled together, my head on his chest, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on my bare shoulder. "No regrets?" he asked quietly. "None," I answered honestly. And it was true. Whatever fears I'd had, whatever doubts, they dissolved in the face of this reality. Pietro wasn't just my husband. He was my partner, my protector. The man who'd given me a choice and then proven himself worthy of that choice every single day. "Good," he murmured, pressing a kiss to my hair. "Because you're stuck with me now, cara mia. For better or worse, until death do us part. You're the Donna of Tuscany, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret choosing me." As I drifted toward sleep in his arms, safe and sated and cherished, I thought about how strange life was. A month ago, I'd been my father's worthless daughter, traded like property. Now I was Pietro Zampieri's wife, his chosen partner, a woman with voice and power and purpose. I'd married to save my sister, but somehow I'd saved myself instead. The first week of marriage passed in a haze of discovery and adjustment. Waking up beside Pietro each morning felt surreal. This powerful man who commanded an empire with absolute authority, who could be ruthless and cold with his enemies, but who was surprisingly gentle with me. He'd bring me espresso in bed, kiss my shoulder as I stirred, murmur "Buongiorno, amore mio," in that deep voice that sent shivers down my spine. Our days fell into a comfortable rhythm. Mornings, Pietro handled business while I worked with his cousin Marco on analyzing the family's legitimate operations: the winery, several restaurants in Florence and Siena, real estate holdings. He'd been right. My eye for patterns and inefficiencies was proving valuable, and the work gave me purpose beyond being simply the Don's wife. Afternoons, we'd often spend together, Pietro teaching me about the organization's structure, its allies and enemies, the delicate balance of power that kept everything functioning. He didn't hide things from me the way my father had, didn't treat me like I was too fragile or stupid to understand complexity. "You're Donna now," he'd told me one afternoon as we reviewed territory maps in his office. "That means you need to know everything, Elena. If something happens to me, you have to be able to step in, to protect our interests, to lead." "Nothing's going to happen to you." I'd protested, the thought of losing him sending unexpected panic through me. "Probably not." His smile was reassuring. "But in our world, probably isn't certainty. I need you prepared, Kara. Promise me you'll learn everything I teach you." I'd promised, and I meant it. Over the past weeks, I'd gone from being a powerless pawn to being a partner in this empire. It was intoxicating in ways I hadn't anticipated, but it was the nights that truly undid me. Pietro was an attentive, passionate lover who seemed determined to learn every detail of what pleased me, who took his time despite his own obvious desire, who made me feel beautiful and desired and cherished in ways I'd never experienced. In his arms, I'd discovered a sensuality I hadn't known I possessed, a hunger that matched his own. "You're thinking too much," he murmured one night as we lay tangled together, both breathing hard from our lovemaking. His fingers traced patterns on my bare shoulder. "I can always tell when your mind is racing." "I'm thinking about how different this is from what I expected," I admitted. "When I chose you, I thought I was trading one prison for another. But this doesn't feel like a prison, Pietro." "What does it feel like?" His green eyes were intent on my face. "Like freedom," I said quietly. Strange as that sounds. Like for the first time in my life, I'm allowed to be fully myself, to think, to work, to have opinions that matter, to be seen as more than just property. Something fierce and possessive flashed in his eyes. "You were never property to me, Elena. You're my wife, my partner, my equal, and you're mine, but not the way your father owned you. You're mine because you chose to be, and that makes all the difference." He was right. The difference between Pietro's possession and my father's had become increasingly clear. My father had owned me like he owned a car or a house, something to use and discard as convenient. Pietro claimed me like a treasure he'd fought for and won, something precious to be protected and cherished. One was imprisoning. The other was liberating. It was mid-November when the first real test of our alliance came. Pietro's brother, Marco Zampieri, named after the family's patriarch, not to be confused with my brother or Pietro's right hand, arrived at the villa with news that sent tension crackling through the house. "The Castellano family is moving on our territory in Siena," Marco reported during a meeting in Pietro's office that I was now routinely included in. "They've been quiet for months, letting us think they'd accepted the new boundaries. But last night, they hit 3 of our establishments. Not violently, just walked in and made it clear they're now offering protection to those businesses." "Massimo Castellano," Pietro said, his voice cold. I should have known he'd try something eventually. He's been looking for an excuse since his son was arrested on our testimony. "What will you do?" I asked, watching the tension in his shoulders. "What I have to do." Pietro's expression was hard. I'll meet with Massimo, remind him of the agreements in place, make it clear that further incursions will be met with force. That's dangerous, I said before I could stop myself. If Massimo is willing to break the agreements, he might be willing to hurt you when you meet him. Pietro's expression softened slightly as he looked at me. That's why I'll bring adequate security, Kara. But I can't let this stand. If I do nothing, every family will think they can chip away at our territory. The meeting was set for 2 days later at a neutral location, a private club in Florence that was considered safe ground for negotiations. Pietro assured me he'd be fine, that these meetings happened regularly, that it was just posturing and power plays. But I couldn't shake my worry. That morning, as he prepared to leave, I followed him to the foyer where Luca and several other men waited by the cars. Elena, Pietro said, turning to me with a slight smile. You're supposed to kiss me goodbye and tell me to be safe, not glare at me like you're planning my murder yourself. I'm not glaring, I'm concerned. I moved closer, lowering my voice. Massimo Castellano has a reputation for being unpredictable, Pietro. What if this is a trap? Then I'll spring it with my eyes open. His hands came up to frame my face, thumb stroking my cheekbone. Amore, I've been handling men like Massimo since I was 19. I know what I'm doing. I know, but... He kissed me, cutting off my protest. When he pulled back, his expression was tender. I love that you worry about me. It's strange. No one's ever worried about me before. They've feared for me, respected me, obeyed me. But worried about me? He shook his head. That's new. Well, get used to it, I said, trying to sound stern. You're my husband. Worrying comes with the territory. Husband. He said the word like it meant something profound. I never thought I'd want that title as much as I do when you say it, Elena. You've changed something in me, cara mia. Made me want things I thought I'd never have. A real partnership. Someone to come home to. Someone who sees me as more than just the dawn. His words made my throat tight. Come home safe, I whispered. Please. Always, he promised. I have too much here to lose now. I watched from the window as the convoy of black SUVs pulled away, disappearing down the long drive. Then I tried to distract myself with work, with the accounts and analyses that usually absorbed me. But I couldn't focus, couldn't stop checking my phone, couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. 3 hours later, my phone finally rang. Pietro. I answered immediately. Are you all right? I'm fine, amore. But his voice was tight. The meeting went badly. Massimo wasn't interested in negotiating. He came ready for war. We need to prepare for retaliation. What happened? I'll explain when I get home. But Elena, I need you to do something for me. I need you to pack a bag and be ready to leave the villa. If things escalate, I'm sending you somewhere safe until this is resolved. No. The word was automatic. I'm not leaving you. Elena, no. I repeated more firmly. You told me I'm your partner. That I need to know everything about how this works. You can't send me away the first time there's real danger, Pietro. Either I'm Donna of this family, or I'm not. Choose. Silence on the other end of the line. Then a rough laugh. You're going to be trouble, aren't you? Probably. So are you coming home to your trouble of a wife or not? I'm on my way. But, Elena, when I get there, we're having a serious discussion about your safety versus your stubbornness. He arrived 30 minutes later, striding into the villa with controlled urgency, his security detail fanning out to reinforce the perimeter. I met him in his office, where he immediately pulled me into his arms, holding me tightly. Tell me what happened, I said against his chest. He released me reluctantly, moving to pour himself whiskey, unusual for him during the day. Massimo came with an ultimatum. Either we cede the Siena territory to him, or he'll take it by force. He's apparently allied with 2 other smaller families, thinks their combined strength matches ours. He's wrong, but it will be bloody proving it. So what do? We prepare for war. His voice was grim. I've called in our allies, reinforced our key locations, made sure everyone knows this is a direct challenge to our authority. If we show weakness now, it's over. Other families will smell blood and circle like sharks. I moved to stand beside him, taking his hand. Then we don't show weakness. We show strength. We remind everyone why the Zampieri family has held Tuscany for 5 generations. Pietro looked at me, something shifting in his expression. You really mean that? You're not afraid? Of course I'm afraid, I admitted. I'm terrified. But I'm also your wife. And that means standing beside you, not cowering in some safe house while you face danger alone. His kiss was fierce, possessive, full of fierce pride. Dio, I love you, he murmured against my lips. I wasn't planning to say it yet, thought it was too soon. But Dio, Elena, I love you. You're extraordinary. The words stole my breath. You love me? Completely, irrevocably. His hands framed my face. I loved you when you chose to marry me to save your sister. I loved you more when you stood up to your brother. I loved you even more when you started working alongside me, proving how brilliant you are. And I love you most now, when you're refusing to abandon me despite the danger. You're everything, cara mia. Tears pricked my eyes. I think I love you too, I whispered. I wasn't sure if what I felt was real, or just gratitude or fear or... But it's real, isn't it? This thing between us. Real as anything I've ever known. His thumb wiped away a tear that had escaped. And that's why you need to understand. If things go badly with Castellano, if the worst happens, I've made arrangements. Marco knows to get you to safety, to make sure you're protected. There's money set aside, documents, everything you'd need to disappear and start over. Stop, I interrupted. Stop planning for your death. We're going to survive this, both of us. We're going to beat Massimo Castellano and anyone else who tries to take what's ours. Together. His smile was slow and devastating. Together, he agreed. All right, Donna Zampieri. If you insist on staying, then you're going to learn how to protect yourself properly. Starting now. What followed was an intensive crash course in security and self-defense. Pietro had his men teach me how to shoot, how to recognize threats, how to move through the villa's hidden passages that I hadn't known existed. He showed me where weapons were cached throughout the house, gave me codes to security systems, made sure I knew exactly what to do if someone breached our defenses. I pray you never need any of this, he said one evening, after a particularly grueling practice session at the shooting range they'd set up on the property. But I sleep better knowing you're not helpless. I was never helpless, I corrected, surprising myself. I just didn't have the tools to fight back. There's a difference. He studied me with those intense green eyes. You're right. You survived your father's house, protected your sister, navigated a world that tried to break you. That takes strength most people never develop. I'm just giving you weapons to match the warrior you already are. The praise made my chest warm. All my life, I'd been told I was worthless, difficult, a burden. But Pietro saw something different. He saw strength and intelligence and value. He made me believe I was capable of more than I'd ever imagined. 2 days later, the situation escalated. One of our warehouses in Siena was firebombed in the middle of the night. No one was killed, thank God, But the message was clear. Castellano was making his move. Pietro's response was swift and calculated. Within 24 hours, he'd exposed a money laundering scheme Castellano had been running, tipped off the authorities with ironclad evidence, and watched as federal agents raided 3 of Massimo's key businesses. It was ruthless, surgical, and completely legal, destroying Castellano's empire through legitimate channels rather than violence. In the old days, this would have been resolved with guns and bloodshed, Pietro explained as we watched the news coverage of Castellano's arrest. But my grandfather taught me that smart power is more effective than raw force. Massimo wanted war. I gave him legal destruction instead. He'll be fighting criminal charges for years, and by the time he's out, if he gets out, his family will have moved on to new leadership that's smarter about respecting boundaries. That was brilliant, I said, genuinely impressed. That was necessary. He pulled me close, his arms coming around me from behind as we stood watching the news. And it was only possible because of information you helped gather, Amore. That analysis you did of his financial structures. That's what we used to build the case. You helped take him down, Elena. I'd contributed something meaningful, used my skills for something that mattered. The realization made me feel powerful in a way I'd never experienced. That night, as we celebrated with his brothers and cousins, with wine and laughter and relief that the crisis had been resolved without bloodshed, I caught Pietro watching me with an expression I'd come to recognize. Pride mixed with possession, mixed with love. Later, when we were finally alone in our room, he pulled me into his arms. "I have something for you," he said, producing a small velvet box. Inside was a delicate gold bracelet, engraved with words in Italian. Fortis et fidelis, strong and faithful. "This was my grandmother's," Pietro said as he fastened it around my wrist. "She gave it to my grandfather on their wedding day with those words, strong and faithful. That's what he said she was, what she proved herself to be throughout their marriage. And that's what you are, Elena, strong enough to stand beside me, faithful enough to trust in what we're building. You've earned this." I looked at the bracelet, then at him, overwhelmed by the gesture. "Pietro, shh." He silenced me with a kiss. "You don't have to say anything, Kyra. Just know that you've become essential to me, to this life, to everything. I wasn't lying when I said I love you, Elena. You're the best choice I've ever made." "I chose you," I reminded him, smiling through tears, "and I chose you right back." His hands framed my face. "Every single day, I choose you, and I'll keep choosing you for the rest of our lives." As he made love to me that night, tender and fierce and absolutely certain, I realized something profound. I'd married Pietro Zampieri to save my sister, accepted a choice between monsters, expected to endure rather than thrive. But somehow, impossibly, I'd found more than safety or protection. I'd found partnership and purpose and love. Real, complicated, fierce love that transformed everything. I'd capitulated to his claim on me. But in doing so, I'd claimed him right back. And together, we were building something unshakable. December arrived with cold rain that turned the Tuscan hills gray and mysterious. I stood at the window of our bedroom, watching water stream down the glass, one hand resting on my stomach. A new habit I'd developed over the past few weeks, though there was nothing visible yet to protect. "Elena?" Pietro's voice came from behind me. "What are you thinking about so intently?" I turned to find him in the doorway, dressed in dark slacks and a white shirt, his hair still damp from the shower. 3 months of marriage, and he still made my heart race when he looked at me like that, like I was the most fascinating thing in his world. "Just thinking about Sophia's wedding next month," I lied. "I can't believe she's actually getting married to Alessio. It seems like just yesterday we were both trapped in Civitavecchia." Pietro crossed the room, his hand settling on my waist, pulling me back against his chest. "You're a terrible liar, cara mia. You've been distracted for days. What's really going on?" I'd been trying to find the right time to tell him, but there never seemed to be a perfect moment. Might as well make it now. "Pietro, I'm pregnant." He went absolutely still behind me. Then his hands tightened on my waist, spinning me to face him. "What did you say?" "I'm pregnant. 8 weeks, according to Dr. Russo." I'd seen the family doctor 2 days ago, confirmed what I'd suspected for the past week. "I wanted to be sure before I told you." Pietro's expression cycled through surprise, wonder, fierce possessiveness, and something that looked like fear before settling on joy. "A baby. We're having a baby." "We are," I confirmed, searching his face. "Are you happy?" We never really discussed timing, and I know with everything happening with the organization. He kissed me, cutting off my anxious rambling. When he pulled back, his eyes were blazing. "Happy doesn't begin to cover it, Elena. You're giving me a child, an heir. You're giving me family in the truest sense. Of course I'm happy." The relief that washed through me was profound. "I wasn't sure how you'd react. It's happening so fast. We've only been married 3 months. 3 months in which you've become essential to everything I am." His hand moved to rest on my still flat stomach, possessive and protective. "This baby is proof of what we're building, amore. A future that's ours, not just an alliance, but a real family." Over the next few weeks, Pietro became simultaneously more protective and more demanding of my involvement in the business. He insisted I cut back on stress, eat properly, rest more. But he also refused to shut me out of important decisions, still valuing my input even as he hovered like I might shatter at any moment. "You're going to drive me insane," I told him one afternoon when he'd appeared for the 3rd time to make sure I was eating lunch. "I'm pregnant, not dying." "I know, but you're carrying something precious and I won't take chances with either of you." He sat beside me, his hand finding its way to my stomach as it always did now. "Elena, I need to tell you something. There's been a development." My stomach dropped at his tone. "What kind of development?" "Your father contacted me yesterday. He wants to meet. Just him and me, no associates. He says it's urgent, about Sophia's upcoming wedding." Pietro's jaw tightened. He was insistent, almost desperate. That worries me. "You think it's a trap?" "I think your father doesn't do anything without ulterior motives." His green eyes met mine. "But I can't refuse the meeting without insulting him, which could jeopardize Sophia's engagement. Alessio's family is already nervous about the alliance. Any sign of conflict between our families and they'll withdraw." "So you're going to meet him?" "I am, tomorrow in Florence. Neutral ground, public location. I'll have security nearby." He paused. "But I wanted you to know in case something goes wrong." "Nothing will go wrong," I said firmly, though fear coiled in my stomach. "You'll meet with him, figure out what he wants, and come home to me and our baby. That's what's going to happen." He kissed my forehead. "That's the plan, cara mia. That's absolutely the plan." But as I watched him leave the next morning, flanked by Luca and Marco, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. My father never did anything without calculation, never reached out unless he had an angle to play. Pietro called me midday. The meeting was strange, he said, his voice troubled. "Antonio claims someone's been threatening him, asking questions about our alliance, about you specifically. He wanted to warn me that there might be outside forces trying to drive a wedge between our families." "Do you believe him?" "I don't know what to believe with your father. But Elena, I need you to be extra careful until I figure out what's really happening. Don't leave the villa. Don't meet with anyone I haven't approved, and keep your phone with you always. Pietro, you're scaring me." "Good. You should be scared. Something's wrong, and until I know what, I need you protected." His voice softened. "I love you, amore. Both of you. I won't let anything happen to you." After we hung up, I tried to focus on work, on anything to distract from the anxiety gnawing at me. But I couldn't concentrate, couldn't stop thinking about my father's sudden concern, about threats and wedges and the complicated web of alliances that made up our world. That evening, as I was reviewing documents in the library, my phone rang. "Sophia." I answered immediately. "Sophia, is everything all right?" "Elena, I'm scared." Her voice was shaking. "Something's happening. Father's been acting strange all week, having secret meetings, sending Marco away on mysterious errands. And tonight, I overheard him on the phone talking about you, about Pietro, about how the plan needs to move forward before it's too late." Ice formed in my veins. "What plan?" "I don't know. But Elena, I think he's planning something bad, something that involves hurting your marriage to Pietro. You need to warn him." "I will. Sophia, are you safe? Do you need to leave? Come here." "I'm fine. Alessio's here, and Father won't risk doing anything that would jeopardize my engagement. But you..." Her voice broke. "Please be careful. I couldn't bear it if something happened to you because of me, because of that choice you made to protect me." After assuring her I'd be careful, I immediately called Pietro. It went to voicemail. I tried Marco, then Luca. Both went to voicemail. Panic began to build. Where was he? It was late evening. He should have been home by now. Should have been checking on me obsessively as he'd been doing since learning about the pregnancy. An hour passed. Then 2. I called everyone I could think of, but no one had heard from Pietro since late afternoon. The villa felt too large, too empty, too vulnerable. At 10 o'clock, headlights finally swept up the drive. I rushed to the entrance, relief washing through me, until I saw it wasn't Pietro's car but a black sedan I didn't recognize. And climbing out was my brother Marco, accompanied by 2 men I'd never seen before. "Elena," Marco said, his voice mockingly cheerful as he climbed the steps. Surprised to see me. I backed toward the door, but he was faster, catching my arm. "Where's your husband, Sorellina? Where's the big bad Don who thinks he can manipulate the Del Vecchio family without consequences?" "Let me go." I tried to pull away, but his grip tightened painfully. "Father sends his regards, and a message. You're coming with us, Elena. Back to Civitavecchia, where you belong." His smile was cruel. "Pietro Zampieri thinks he can protect you? We're about to prove him wrong." The other men moved forward, and I realized with horror that this had been the plan all along. My father hadn't been warning Pietro about threats. He'd been setting a trap, using the meeting to distract him while Marco came for me. "You can't do this," I said, trying to sound calm despite the terror clawing at me. "I'm Pietro's wife, taking me as an act of war." "That's exactly what Father wants." Marco dragged me toward the car. "He's decided the alliance isn't worth the cost. You married above your station, forgot where you came from. Time to remind you, and to remind the Zampieris that Del Vecchio daughters don't get to choose their own paths." I fought, struggled, screamed for help. But the villa's security had been mysteriously absent, likely paid off or threatened by my father's men. Within minutes, I was in the car, speeding away from the only home I'd ever known that felt safe, away from the man I loved, away from the life I'd built. As the Tuscan hills disappeared behind us, my hand went to my stomach. Pietro's child, our future. I had to protect this baby, had to find a way to survive whatever my father had planned. But as Civitavecchia's lights appeared on the horizon, returning to the prison I'd escaped, I wondered if survival was even possible anymore. They locked me in my old bedroom, the room I'd lived in for 24 years before marrying Pietro. It looked exactly the same. Cream walls, modest furniture, the window overlooking the courtyard that had been my only view of the outside world. But I was different. I wasn't the powerless girl who'd left here 3 months ago. I was Elena Zampieri now, Donna of Tuscany, carrying the heir to the Zampieri Empire, and I would not be broken. My father came to see me the next morning, looking pleased with himself as he settled into the chair across from where I sat on the bed. "Elena, you're looking well. Marriage clearly agrees with you. What do you want?" I kept my voice level, refusing to show fear. "What I've always wanted, respect. The Zampieri family has been expanding too aggressively, pushing into territories that should belong to us. Your husband has become too powerful, too confident." He leaned forward. "You're going to help me fix that." "I'm not helping you do anything." "Oh, I think you will." His smile was cold. "Because if you don't cooperate, if Pietro tries to come for you, I'll make sure Sofia suffers the consequences. Alessio's family is easily intimidated. One word from me, and her engagement is over. She'll marry Francesco Rossi after all." The threat hit like a physical blow. After everything, after all Pietro and I had done to protect her, my father was using Sofia as leverage again. "You're a monster. I'm a businessman, and right now, you're my most valuable asset." He stood, moving to the door. "You'll call your husband tomorrow and tell him you've decided to stay here, that the marriage was a mistake. You'll end this alliance and return where you belong, under my control." After he left, I paced the room like a caged animal, my mind racing. Pietro would come for me. I knew he would. But if he did, Sofia would pay the price, and Alessio's family would withdraw their support, leaving her vulnerable, unless I could find another way. My old hiding places were still there, the loose floorboard near the window, the space behind the bookshelf, and miraculously, my father's men hadn't confiscated my phone. They'd seen it, dismissed it as irrelevant since I couldn't call out without triggering the security system that monitored all communications from the house. But what they didn't know was that Pietro had given me something else. A small device disguised as a lipstick tube that could override electronic security for exactly these situations. "I pray you never need this," he'd said when giving it to me. "But if you're ever in danger, if you're ever taken, use it to contact me. I'll find you, Elena. Always." That night, after the house had gone quiet, I retrieved the device from my hidden pocket and my phone from under the mattress. My hands trembled as I activated the override, watching the screen as it bypassed my father's security systems. Then I called Pietro. He answered on the first ring. "Elena." His voice was raw, devastated. "Dio, amore, are you hurt? Did they—" "I'm fine. The baby's fine." My voice broke on the last word. "Pietro, I'm so sorry. He set a trap. I know. And I'm coming for you. Tonight. Luca and I have been planning since the moment I realized you were gone." "No." I forced the word out. "You can't come. He's threatening Sofia. If you try to rescue me, he'll destroy her engagement, marry her to Rossi. He's using her to control me." Pietro's silence was terrible. Then, "What do you want me to do, Elena? Leave you there? Let him win?" "I want you to trust me." I took a deep breath. "I have a plan, but I need time. Can you give me 24 hours? 24 hours of you in your father's custody." His voice was anguished. "Elena, I can't. You have to. For Sofia, for our baby, for everything we've built." My hand went to my stomach. "Pietro, I'm not the powerless girl I used to be. You taught me to shoot, to think strategically, to see patterns. Trust that I can handle this." Another pause. Then, "What do you need from me?" Over the next 5 minutes, I explained my plan. It was risky, potentially deadly, but it was the only way to protect everyone I loved and destroy my father's power permanently. When I finished, Pietro was quiet for a long moment. That's bold, amore, and dangerous. I learned from the best. I could hear the smile in my own voice despite everything. Will you do it? For you. I'll do anything. But Elena, if this goes wrong, if he hurts you, he won't, because I'm not his worthless daughter anymore. I'm your wife, your partner, the mother of your child, and I'm about to remind him exactly what that means. The next morning, I asked to see my father. Marco brought me to his study, where Antonio sat behind his desk like a king on his throne. Ready to make that phone call? He asked smugly. Actually, I wanted to discuss terms. I sat in the chair across from him, channeling every bit of confidence Pietro had taught me. You want me to end my alliance with the Zampieris, but you haven't thought through the consequences. His eyes narrowed. What consequences? Pietro Zampieri isn't like other men you've dealt with. He's smart, patient, and absolutely ruthless when it comes to protecting what's his. If I call him and end things, he won't just accept it. He'll know I'm under duress, and he'll come anyway. But this time, he'll come with war. Let him try. I have allies who will abandon you the moment they realize what you've done. I leaned forward. You kidnapped a Don's wife, Father. A pregnant wife. Every family in Italy will see you as unstable, dangerous, someone who breaks the most sacred rules of our world. Pietro won't have to fight you alone. He'll have allies lining up to help destroy you just to prove they're not associated with your madness. I saw uncertainty flicker across his face. Good. What are you proposing? A trade. You let me return to Tuscany voluntarily. Tell everyone this was all a misunderstanding, that I came home to visit and decided to stay a few extra days. In exchange, I convinced Pietro to give you a piece of the Siena territory you've been coveting, a show of good faith that repairs the alliance. Why would Pietro agree to that? He knows I took you. Because I'll ask him to, and Pietro gives me whatever I ask for. I let a small smile curve my lips. You may not value me, Father, but my husband does. He'll trade territory for my safe return and his child's protection. That's the kind of man he is. Antonio considered this, greed warring with suspicion in his expression. And Sophia? You won't interfere with her marriage to Rossi? If you try to force her into that marriage, all bets are off. Pietro and I will ally with every family that opposes you, and will destroy you. But if you honor her engagement to Alessio, let her be happy, then we'll maintain peace. Your choice. He studied me for a long moment. You've changed. Yes, I have. I stood. Do we have an agreement? Fine. You can return to your precious husband. But Elena, if this is some kind of trick, it's not. I moved toward the door, then paused. But Father, you should know, I'm not afraid of you anymore, and I never will be again. You lost your power over me the day Pietro gave me a choice. Remember that. I left before he could respond, my heart hammering but my stride confident. Phase 1 complete. The return to Tuscany was orchestrated carefully. Antonio's men drove me back, making it look like a willing visit ending naturally. But the moment I walked through the villa's doors and saw Pietro waiting, I dropped the act. He crossed the foyer in 3 strides, pulling me into his arms, holding me so tightly I could barely breathe. Elena, he whispered against my hair. Dio, I thought I'd lost you. When I got home and you were gone. I know. I'm sorry. I pulled back to look at him, seeing the shadows under his eyes, the tension in his shoulders. He'd barely slept, I realized. Had probably been planning my rescue, preparing for war. But I'm okay. We're okay. His hand moved to my stomach, a gesture that was becoming automatic for both of us. And the baby? Fine, she's a fighter, this one. I said it deliberately, watching his reaction. She? His eyes widened. I don't know for sure, but I have a feeling. I took his hand, leading him toward his office. Pietro, we need to talk about what happens next. My father thinks this is over, that he's won some concession from us. But he's wrong. What are you planning, Kara? There was caution in his voice, mixed with curiosity. I'm planning to destroy him. Permanently. Over the next hour, I laid out the full plan. Everything I'd discovered during my time in Civitavecchia, all the weaknesses I'd noticed, every vulnerability in my father's operation. Pietro listened, occasionally asking questions, his expression growing more impressed with each detail I revealed. You're magnificent, he said finally, and terrifying. Remind me never to make you angry. Too late. He threatened our child, Pietro. He threatened Sofia. He tried to take everything we've built. My voice was hard. I want him finished, not just beaten, destroyed. Can you do that? Oh, amore. His smile was dangerous. I can do far more than that. What followed was a masterclass in calculated destruction. Pietro used the information I'd provided to systematically dismantle my father's empire over the following weeks. Business deals fell through. Allies suddenly withdrew support. Authorities began investigating financial irregularities. And throughout it all, Pietro and I maintained a facade of reconciliation, of the alliance working beautifully. My father never saw it coming. By the time he realized what was happening, it was too late. His power base had crumbled, his reputation was in tatters, and the other families were circling like vultures. Sofia's wedding to Alessio went forward beautifully, and in a final irony, it was Pietro who gave her away at the ceremony, not as her father, but as the head of her sister's family, the man who'd actually protected her. You did this, Sofia whispered to me during the reception. You destroyed father to protect me. Pietro and I did this together, I corrected. And yes, I did. Because you're my sister, and no one threatens my family. The word felt right. Family. Not the twisted, cruel version I'd grown up with, but the real thing, built on choice and love and fierce protection. The final blow came on a cold January evening. Pietro received word that my father had been arrested on multiple charges. His assets were frozen, his associates had turned on him, and he faced decades in prison. It was over. How do you feel? Pietro asked me that night as we lay in bed, his hand resting on my now visible baby bump. Free, I said honestly. For the first time in my life, completely free. Good. He pressed a kiss to my shoulder. Because you deserve that freedom, Elena. You always did. 2 months later, on a warm March morning, I gave birth to our daughter. We named her Mattea, after Pietro's grandfather, the man who'd taught him that power without honor was just thuggery. As I held her in my arms, this tiny, perfect miracle, Pietro beside me looking at her with such wonder and love, I thought about the impossible journey that had brought us here. I'd married to save my sister, chosen between monsters, expected to endure a loveless alliance. Instead, I'd found partnership and purpose and love, fierce, complicated, real love that had transformed both of us. I'd gone from being a powerless pawn to becoming Donna of one of Italy's most powerful families. I'd learned to be strong, to fight, to protect what mattered. What are you thinking, amore? Pietro asked, noticing my tears. That I made the right choice, I said softly. That day in the sitting room, when you gave me an option. Marry you or accept my father's arrangement. I thought I was just picking the lesser evil, but I wasn't. I was choosing my future, choosing freedom, choosing love. You chose me, Pietro said, his voice thick with emotion. And I choose you. Every single day I choose you, Elena. You and this perfect little girl. My family. Our family, I corrected. Always. Little Mattea made a soft sound, and we both laughed through tears. This was what I'd fought for. This moment, this love, this impossible future that had become our reality. I'd married the Mafia Boss to save my sister, but somehow, he'd saved me right back. And together, we'd built something unbreakable. Something real. Something that would last for generations. Not just an empire of power and fear, but a legacy of honor and protection and fierce, unwavering love. My grandfather's words echoed in my mind. You are the future of the organization, of this family, each of you. Remain united. Protect and care for each other. Family, always. Family, always. Now I understood what that truly meant. Not the twisted version I'd grown up with, but the real thing, chosen, protected, cherished. Worth fighting for. Worth everything. As I looked at my husband and our daughter, I knew with absolute certainty this was just the beginning. Our future stretched before us, full of challenges and joy, danger navigated together and triumphs celebrated side by side. But we'd face it all the same way we'd faced everything else, together, united, unbreakable. Because that's what real family did. And we were real family now. Finally, blessedly, completely, forever.